All right, welcome to the Best Overall Show, episode 5. My name is Jim Vessel, your host, and today I'm joined by David Koska, my amazing co-host. Hey,
Yo!
David. And also joined by Daniel Smith. Daniel Smith, how are ya?
I'm doing great, guys. How about y'all? That came out real southern, by the way. How are y'all doing tonight?
Sorry about the late start, guys. Daniel, as usual, this wouldn't be the Best Overall Show with a little bit of technical issues. We seem to have technical issues on just about every episode, whether it's too quiet, too loud, echoes, sound issues, frames cutting out, etc., etc. So it's kind of I guess it's now like a part of the show. Like we have to have one sound issue or other issues. So thanks for everyone for tuning in. Shane in the chat, how's it going? Brian, thanks for joining. Who else we got? Anyone cool? Because I don't care about those guys. No, I'm just kidding. Let me see here. We got
all humans are amazing.
All right. So it is Thursday, April 15th, 2021, and lots to talk about today. It's been a very, very I want to say exciting day in the world of 40K and otherwise. And Warmstress Ray, how's it going? War Mistress Tanya, how are you? And yeah, so before we get into it, as always, I have a few quick announcements. So first announcement is that immediately following this podcast at 8 o'clock Pacific, I will be streaming a game of TTS in the pod that I'm in for the TTS tournament. So if you want to check out Death Guard versus Drukhari, my Terminus S list versus Drukhari list, I'm going to obviously end the stream, but stay tuned. We're going to do it's probably about 3-hour game. Second thing is I've been speed painting the Cursed City box set, which we're going to talk about a little bit more on the channel. So if you guys are interested in seeing some Cursed City videos, I got a few up on YouTube. So make sure to check those out. And then third is actually two more announcements, one big, one small. So the small other announcement is we are now live on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Podbean, and Google Podcasts. So if you guys would like to listen to the show in podcast form, please make sure to check it out. And also just, if you could, it would be super helpful if you're listening, whether it's on any of those things, just to like and subscribe us on both YouTube and Twitch. Give us this 5 stars, 10 stars, 100 stars, I don't care. But that would be really helpful. It really helps the show.
I don't think that's how they rate stars.
However many stars you want, but just give us something. It just really helps the show. We're a small channel and we're trying to grow, and that really helps the Google algorithm know what's up. And then the last announcement I have before we get into it is that I'm doing a partnership with Dropzone TV. So Dropzone TV is the team behind, it's run by Liam Dempsey and Winters SEO, who's a big battle report guy on YouTube. And basically, I'm going to be doing a weekly show, competitive show. So currently, Politics and Plastics is a bit of a discussion show, one-on-one. Obviously, the Best Overall Show is a variety show with all sorts of different topics and guests. And then starting next Wednesday, actually, we'll be doing the first episode of a competitive corner with me. And basically, that's going to be 4 episodes a week. It's going to be a much more competitive focus than the other current shows. And we're going to do four of those shows a month. So stay tuned. I'm just basically doing 1,000,000 different shows, and yeah, so I'm very excited for that. We're actually going to have Winters SEO on the first episode to kind of introduce the show and talk about what the show is going to be, and I'm going to be working with those guys to help produce some content as well. And then also on Sunday this week, there is no cast. I'm going to be recording with the guys that play on Tabletop, doing both an army showcase and a game against my mortal enemy, Gary Sacco. So keep an eye on their channel for that. Make sure you subscribe to their channel if you have not already. They do amazing battle reports. I'd say the best in the game. Yeah, and that's about it. That's all the announcements I have. So with that said, I guess first thing I wanted to do is just kind of have Daniel, who's new on the show. Maybe you could just introduce yourself, Daniel, and tell us a little bit about yourself. How you got into the game, just anything that you think is worthwhile talking about. I'd love to kind of hear more. I actually don't know a ton about you other than the many chats that we're in together.
Yeah, for sure. So I won't go too deep into the history. It's not very interesting. I used to play like HeroClix, Magic Gathering, all those competitive board games. And like, long story short, the scene just wasn't there. And me and my buddy Jimmy, he was actually helping me get all my audio set up today too. So shout out to Jimmy.
He was quite successful, so maybe not shout out. No shout outs.
Yeah. Anyways, a gator got in my computer. What can I say? It's Florida for you. So anyways, long story short, we walk into a hobby store and there's we were playing HeroClix, and it's all 2D map grid view. It's kind of boring. So we walk into a hobby store, and there's this 6-foot by 4-foot table with 3D terrain, fully painted miniatures. I mean, it's just beautiful. I've never heard of this game, seen this game, anything. And it's just beautiful. I see Tyranids on the shelf in a box. It's a freaking Carnifex. So I'm just sold. That's it. End of story. So that was back in the end of 5th edition.
5th edition, 40K.
So
sorry. Some of us when when people say 5th
edition
to me, I think fantasy, because that's my background. So you got to be specific here.
Yep. You're right. That's true. And I actually, so to segue, long story short, we play some 40K. We don't get super competitive. It kind of fades away because we're just busy, because it's like high school, college time when we're getting into this, starting careers, all that. So I am actually like hanging out, just minding my own business. And I get a buddy hits me up just out of the blue that I used to play 40K with. And he's like, hey, we're starting a Warhammer Fantasy League. You want in? And I'd always like Tomb Kings. So I just dive in with Tomb Kings and start playing summoning, doing all this stuff. And I freaking love it. So I'm just grinding away, having a blast. And then Age of Sigmar comes, wipes out fantasy. And I'm sitting there like, what the hell,
for those
dude?
that are listening to the audio podcast, I'm thumbs downing at Age of Sigmar. But that's a different story.
Hey, man. Let the Age of Sigmar players Sigmar, man.
I'm starting Age of Sigmar, by the way, for 3rd edition Age of Sigmar. I'm doing vampire counts because they're basically a fantasy army. But that's a whole story. So sorry, Daniel, continue.
Yeah.
No, you're good. If they bring Tomb Kings back, I'll play Age of Sigmar competitively. I don't care about
Such
the balance
does not
of the game.
kneel.
But but unfortunately that army just disappears into not even the warp, because it's freaking Sigmar. Just goes away, gone, poof. So I'm sitting there, I love the aesthetic. I start picking up Necrons and Thousand Suns, because that's just a natural transition. And my buddy Will, who's in the chat right now talking crap about me, he's a Tau player. And so that's like, we just start hitting it, going competitive, starting to go to events, and we actually build up some momentum and decide we're going to go to Crucible in Orlando. And this is kind of the segue into Brohammer as well. So me and Will, we're hanging out, having fun, thinking we're kind of good at this game, whatever. We go to Crucible, actually do well in the doubles tournament, but find out our list was illegal, so we just drop so we can finish painting. Like, it was just like super excited. Next thing you know, well, my list is illegal. We just stomped our opponents, looked down. It was restricted to 1 Lord of War. We had 2. Okay, we're done. Sorry, guys.
Okay, guys, we have an admitted cheater on the podcast. So if you have any questions about cheating, now's the time.
Yep. my first tournament ever. It's a little 3-round doubles, and I cheated. What can I say? So anyways, we just spend the rest of the time watching Rocky in the freaking hotel, all the Rocky movies, just grinding out paint for our armies, and play the Crucible event. I go like 3-2 or 2-3. I don't do great, but whatever. It was a ton of fun, and I'm hooked. And so my goal, there was a local team in Orlando, and my goal was to become good enough to get onto that team. And I don't know, I'm kind of completely sideways of the question you originally asked me.
Right.
You're right. So
no, it's totally, I just want to know kind of how you got in the hobby, but tell we're gonna ask you this anyways later, so might as well just hear it now, and then we'll get into all the other topics. So no problem.
Yeah, makes sense. So
the show's about everything and nothing.
Right,
it's like the Seinfeld shows, so you can kind of just talk
without
about,
going too deep into it,
like whatever we want.
We started realizing the competitive scene was kind of toxic in Florida. There were people who would manipulate the clock a little bit to try to gain an advantage. People who would kind of bully you, intimidate you, like they know the rules, they know this, like, what are you even doing trying here, whatever. And I remember reading an article on like one of those fluffy crap, like Blood of Kittens websites, where it was like, you're going to a GT, don't expect to be the one who wins. Not everyone remembers to use their like pistols or throw their grenades. And I was like, screw that crap. Like, why can't I be the one that wins?
Well, I mean, to be fair, Blood Kittens is very high caliber journalism, and it's probably the website. I think is it run by Evan?
No,
Is that Evan that runs it? Evan Van Dyke or whatever. I don't know who actually runs it, but the articles on there make me laugh so hard. They're all just so over the top. It's like for me, it's like a tabloid of the 40K universe, and I
I
love it. I'm
think
like, yes,
this name
Blood
might
Kittens is here
mean
like,
something
crush
to some people. I think it was an article written by Steve Turner, and I'll just leave it at that.
I don't know, actually know who Steve Turner
It's
is,
part
so
of
it's probably before
the
my
greater
time.
story. But we I guess we got time. We can go into that at some point. But anyways, the whole thing is about how you're not going to be the best. It's okay to like just beer and pretzels. Don't worry about winning. All that stuff. I was like, screw that crap. Like, I want to win, but I also don't like the way these guys are winning. So I want to do it through sportsmanship and through being a bro. That was kind of it. And at the same time, our local community is starting to grow. We've got 5, 6, 8, sometimes 10 people come in. Literally, I'm hosting parties at my house where I just blast it to everyone I've ever met in Central Florida who plays 40K. I'm like, hey guys, come on down. Let's just play 40K. Let's get better at this game. And so we just start grinding games, hanging out, drinking way too late, shooting fireworks off, doing all the Florida stuff you'd expect.
Wait,
And,
are you shooting fireworks at a tournament or outside of the venue?
Oh no, at my house in the middle of the night after drunkenly playing for 12 hours.
Oh, that makes way more sense. Okay then.
That one.
But does it make sense? I don't know.
So we might have shot fireworks at events. Who knows? It's Florida.
Yes,
It's before the gator wrangling.
Yeah, I know there might have been like parking lot fights, all kind of stuff. So me, my buddy Will, and my buddy Cass, we're kind of like the three that are spearheading a lot of this. Cass, his house, we call it the gym, and we call my house the forge. So you go to the gym to work out, and then you come to the forge to really like just iron out some lists. So we're bouncing between these two places, and Will is like in between me and Cass. So he's just coming both places. The three of us are going crazy, getting everything we can. And that's kind of how like Brohammer started, was just in people's houses, sharing a good time, eating cheap, greasy pizza, drinking cheap beer, and just enjoying the sportsmanship aspect of the game while still getting better and better at the game itself. Because we have a good brain trust of myself as just a competitively driven person. Cass is very much a community driven guy. He's, like Raid Master in World of Warcraft. He's the type to always be inclusive because, some like people are in it for different reasons. I was listening to your episode last week, actually, talking about all the charity events and taking care of like men's mental health. And we realized there's a lot of veterans who play this game, Cass being one of them. And so it's an outlet for people who are motivated, who have things they're working through, to have fellowship, kind of have that same feeling to hang out and feel welcome, and kind of have a two in the morning drunk off your ass conversation that's meaningful. But we have a commonality in 40K. So all these people of different demographics who wouldn't normally have met each other or gotten together have this opportunity.
That's awesome. And I guess I kind of buried the lead because I didn't actually mention it, but Daniel actually co-founded Brohammer, which is, for some of you that may know, the best team, I guess, in the ITC. Is it best club or team? I don't know if it's a club or team, but best club in the ITC, the most amount of points. And obviously they're based out of Florida. I know I actually haven't met Daniel in person. And I actually, one of the questions I meant to ask you is, why didn't I meet you in person? Because obviously I ran into Richard and John, and we shared many hotel rooms in the 2019 season. So are you like stuck in Florida, or why aren't we seeing you out on the circuit more like those two? I know obviously those kids are like, I think Richard just turned like 16 or something, so he doesn't have much going on. But like, why aren't we seeing you out in the scene like those two?
Yeah. So the farthest I've traveled so far was ATC.
Okay. That's Chattanooga,
Tennessee's
Chattanooga,
not
right? Which
yeah,
is
Chattanooga.
Tennessee? Sorry, or Georgia. One of them. I'm like, it's close to Georgia.
Tennessee.
I don't know. I'm a Canadian. I can't be expected to know where.
Sweatiest
I
place in
can't be
America.
noted where goddamn Chattanooga is. Oh, I did meet you at ATC. I'm a liar then.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, but I was gonna
I
blame
think your
the
beard was
alcohol
much
'cause I know
shorter.
I drank a bunch.
And I was probably
Yes.
Dan, would you agree that Chattanooga is the sweatiest place in America?
Dude, I'm in Florida. Like, it could depend on your definition of sweaty. If you're talking like the Magic the Gathering dudes who are hanging out, like,
Yeah.
you know what?
Well, I know personally as someone that lives in Vancouver, which is very temperate. Like it's currently a beautiful sunny day here, which is like 20. It's like 18 degrees Celsius, which is probably in like low 70s. That's for me is like the perfect weather, right? So when I came to Chattanooga for ATC that year, I was like, and the venue A is like not really air conditioned, or if it is, it's like there's the hamsters that run the air conditioning are dead, and I just remember just dying in the heat, and like Mark Perry was like, yeah, whatever, like you guys, all the guys from Florida were like, what are you talking about? And I was just there like basically like, you know, panting in the corner trying not to die. So like I definitely remember the heat. I was like, I don't, and everyone was like, oh, come to Florida. And I've been to Florida. I've been to Orlando, and I've been to Orlando. That's it. And oh, maybe Miami. I can't remember. But yeah, I don't do well in heat. I don't do well in cold. I'm very much a Goldilocks type of character.
It's very rare when I go somewhere where there's an air quality warning. And when I went to Chattanooga for ATC, I think it was like 2018 or 2017, there was an air quality warning, and I'm like, whatever, like fuck that shit. I know I'm good. I've been in high altitudes. I literally couldn't do a lap around that building without being like, I'm gonna die. I am dying. And I literally crawled into like a side exit because I couldn't breathe. It was so humid and gross.
So, I played football in the beautiful state of Florida on an AstroTurf field that has little black rubber pellets. If you want to talk about feeling like breathing, we had to do some workouts. You could see the heat like emanating off of that crap, and we were doing like wind sprints. So I don't know. Ever since experiencing that, like, I'm good.
That's amazing. Yeah, I'm not like upset that I don't live in Florida. Okay, well, we're gonna come back to you because me and David definitely have a lot of questions about to kind of dig into that. But I do want to get into. I think we've almost beat the 40K adjacent show for longest 40K podcast without actually talking about 40K. So they and if you don't listen to the 40K adjacent show with my friends on the Honest Wargamer, Val and Peter the Falcon, literally Peter and Val try as hard as they can to avoid talking 40K, and Rob tries as hard as he can to get them to talk 40K, and the whole thing is basically just one big meme. But it's an amazing show, so definitely check out the 40K Jason show.
That does sound amazing.
Okay, so I wanted to get into some weekly news and some other happenings in the hobby. So my first, I guess, thing that I wanted to talk about is obviously Bellacore goes on pre-order next week, and we saw the preview of the new Sisters models this week, chicks with halberds. I don't know what they're called. So what do you guys think so far of the Sisters models? Especially, I think we've seen the tank, we've seen the halberd people, we've seen the one character, and the what's the other thing we've seen? The robot chicks, the chicks in suits. By the way, I don't actually know what these names are, so I'm gonna call them sisters in suits or like sisters with halberds. That's the name. What do you guys think so far of the new sister stuff? Do you think we're gonna get a new codex, or is it just gonna all be wrapped in a supplement? And second, what do you think of Bellacore, and why is he the best model ever? Go.
Daniel, take it away.
All right. So in Florida, my boy Tim Pinney, he has decided that the nuns in the walking suits are nundums.
I like that.
And so that's what I'm going for. So I actually just circumstantially ended up with about 1,500 points of Sisters of Battle new in box sitting on my shelf.
Accident that he has a whole new of the best army in the game. just fell into his shelf. He just tripped and one day there's a Sisters army in his closet.
Nice.
Yeah, I won't ramble again on how that happened, but it happens more often than I'd like to admit.
Oh, I know.
Um,
I'm an honorary Brohammer member, and so I'm in the chats where when he's either buying or selling all these armies, and it's like basically twice a week there's new models coming into Daniel's possession and models going out of his possession, or parts of armies that he's trying to sell to people. So I see the the buying and selling that Daniel does very very regularly.
yeah, my favorite. I got paid about $700 to get Custodes. Like that's a thing. That's how it happened. But besides that, back to the original question, Bellicor is the best model ever. I will be buying as many as I'm allowed to, and then probably some more. And I'm just going to play an army of 5 Bellicors or 10 Bellicors, whatever 2,000
There you
points allowed.
go.
And if anyone argues with me, like they're just wrong because it's Bellicor.
It's like
It's okay. You can
David,
just
what do you
fight
think?
them.
I know. I mean, maybe we've talked about it on the show before, but like, as far as like Games Workshops, where they've like the not like as far as just both the model on its own, but also the glow up from the previous like metal model. Like, I'd say it in both categories. Personally, it's like the best I've ever seen.
Oh, for
Yeah.
Belcor? Yeah, he's a fucking beast, dude. That model's amazing. I really like it. I mean, though it is very, like we said before, very Diablo, Blizzard look to it. I mean, it is still a really amazing model. Like you can't not like get half chubbed from it. Like
Yeah.
it's just you can't.
For me, I guess like
Pretty amazing.
like, and we don't talk. We could have a whole episode on how amazing Bellicor is. Bellicor, if you're listening, call me. I wanna maybe I can take you out for dinner. Like for me, there's models in every army that are like these like key cornerstone models that when people see, they're like, I want to start that army because of this one model. For Thousand Sons, that was Magnus for me. Like when I saw that Magnus model for the first time, I was like, I need this army. I don't care anything else about it. I don't know anything about this army. I was like, I need this Thousand Sons army. This Magnus is amazing. Also, coming up on an episode of Politics and Plastic, did Magnus do anything wrong? That'll be a very controversial topic, which we'll spend 2 hours talking about. I mean, even though the answer is no.
Yes.
But anyways, so this for me,
Yes,
Bellicor
no.
is like that.
Get out
It's
of
like
here,
that
Dave.
level of coolness where it's like a kind of model that makes you want to collect an army around the model, right? And there's very few like models that do that. Like you look at Nagash, you look at Alariel. I wouldn't say the Techless model from the Lumineth, but I look at the Silent King. Speaking of Silent King, I just got a Silent King. I'm doing a Silent King commission. Actually, I just signed a commission today for a Silent King. So gonna be working on that. So check that out.
Dude, nice.
So that's my first Necron model I painted. But like,
you.
even a model like I wouldn't say Guilliman because he's a bitch. But there's Mortarion. There's these models that are in each range, that make people really want to collect those armies. And for me, that's Bellicor. Like it's just like I gotta buy more demons now.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I agree 100%. Like when I was rambling earlier about the Carnifex, I walked in and I saw that Carnifex and it was just done for me. Bellicor is going to do that for so many people in this game, and as long as he can get on the shelves, which has been an issue.
So the normal game store that I usually buy from, I'm thinking I want to get 2 because I want to do one like kind of classic scheme with wings, and then I kind of want to do one like David alluded to, like almost like an on foot demon prince without wings, and then maybe in like a Diablo-esque color scheme, just to fulfill my childhood fantasy of having a Diablo model. So we'll see. And then I also have a commission already signed for a 3rd one, so I'll be painting probably 3 Bellicors.
I hope that you buy a Bellicor with no wings, and then you have like 3 Bosons and like a Barbarian like laying at its feet, and you're like, that's a 40K model. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. All right, so guys, I want to touch on 2 very hot topics that have been kind of raging and embroiling the community today. And I think I'm going to touch on the least controversial one, even though they're both quite controversial. And so the first one I want to talk about is, well, it's probably least controversial to 40K players, which is the Cursed City situation. So for those of you that don't know, Cursed City is obviously the new Warhammer Quest game. Games Workshop, when it was coming out, they spent, how long have they been hyping it? Like 2 months, 3 months? So there's a lot of hype around this game. All the communication up to basically yesterday, and I have the tweets and screenshots to prove it because I tracked them down. Basically, a lot of people were worried this is going to be Indominus 2.0. We're not going to get boxes. Do we got to panic buy, right? And funny enough, when I was in my LGS to pick it up, I was like, I don't even know if I'm going to play this for another 6 months because we're still in lockdown. But GW has like put me in this mode of purchasing where I buy things because I'm worried if I don't buy them right away, I'm not going to be able to get it later, right? And of course, I went in. I literally, as soon as they previewed it, I emailed my LGS. I was like, hey, can you put this on hold? So, but with that said, I was like, well, I could have just waited because all the communication, and as I said, there's multiple screenshots on Twitter, on Facebook from Warhammer community saying this is going to be a regular boxed item. It's going to be part of the range. It's going to be ongoing. There's going to be expansions. So everyone kind of went into this release with that impression. Turns out, all of a sudden, yesterday or in the last 48 hours, it disappeared off the web store. People were like, what's going on here? And then there's a lot of people asking the Warcom team on Twitter and Facebook and all these different places, hey, what's going on, Curse City? And now it turns out that's it. It was a limited run. If you didn't get one, you didn't get one, and they're not reprinting. There's no last chance to buy, which could change by the time this podcast goes live or in the future. I know they backtracked with Indominus to do something like that. And now there's a huge uproar over the fact that GW basically said, guys, don't worry, we're going to have lots of these boxes. But then after they sold them all, which they did, they sold out instantly on the online store. People are scalping them for like hundreds of dollars online. And now all of a sudden they're saying, oh yeah, it is actually limited after all. So what do you guys think of the situation? What should GW do? Do you think this was intentional? Do you think, I don't blame the Warcom team because they're just probably passing information, right? But what do you guys think of the situation and what should be done, I guess? Because this, for me, seems like a giant breach of trust to the customer base from Games Workshop. So what are your guys' thoughts?
You take this one first, Dave. I took the last one.
Whoa. What? Okay. I can do that. I'm ready. My body is ready. Yeah, I'm a little bummed out because I didn't know any of this was happening. Like, I think Jim was like, I'm going to drop some hot takes on me without me knowing. And I'm like, I got to do reactions too. So now I'm like, fuck. I'm scrambling to find this box set. I'm a little bit pissed. Last episode, we talked about it a bit. And yeah, I'm a little bummed out. More so now because I literally had like a week to like prepare for this and I dropped the ball. I suck. Yeah, I think like this is not a good idea on GW's call. The problem is it's a Warhammer Quest game, like Black Fortress, and like, they probably are looking at gaming trends, like how well did the expansion for Black Fortress sell? And they're probably like, maybe they hyped Black Fortress too hard. No one really cared about the expansions. And then they came out with that secondary Warhammer Quest game. Maybe they thought it wasn't going to be as hot of a sell. Right. I don't know. I feel like a GW is... The problem about GW is like they're at the forefront of this gaming industry. They really are. Like they are the premier miniature gaming company. So like whatever they do is like it's foreign territory. So like them making mistakes is like there's no existing like formula to go off of. Like if they fuck up,
I guess to your point, David, I don't think the issue is that like no one's saying that this, whether or not this should have been limited or not. Like, and to your point about Blackstone Fortress, I mean, taken. But when they say that this is not limited, and then a week after it sells out, they say, oh, actually it is limited. I think that's the real problem. If they had said from day one, guys, this is gonna be a limited release, just like they did for Indominus, right? They basically said, hey, this is gonna be a limited release, limited set of boxes, and they sold out super quick, and then they ended up remaking them. In this case,
give them time.
Yeah, in this case, they said, this is not going to be limited, so maybe people weren't as aggressive with getting their copies, and then turned around and said, no, we're out, basically, so you're screwed if you don't got one. So I think that's the bigger issue. And my question is on that specific issue, that really poor communication, that like inability, and like here's the thing, that's not like a rule mistake for me in my eyes. That's a huge thing. Whoever's running communications at Games Workshop and that's communicating these like between product and their public-facing platforms should get fired for a mistake that big. Like that's massive as far as I'm concerned. Now the question is what should they do?
I mean, like the thing is that they did like a release kind of like this with Space Hulk, where they did a limited run. They didn't say it was a limited run. We bought it until it just like we show up at an LGS and they're like, we're out. And we're like, we just kind of accepted it. And then, a little down the line, they re-released it again in like 2 years again. I mean, granted, like we're talking about like GW's allocation, the way they pump out games is much faster now than it used to be. So it's very difficult to really use that as like an example because it literally doesn't really count because GW just keeps picking their pace up. I think mostly it's them just shooting themselves in the foot majority of the time. Is that they're trying to move too fast for their company to handle because they're not upgrading the size of their company fast enough. I think that's the problem.
Right, but I guess what do you think maybe David, you can, or Daniel, David, you're David. Daniel, maybe you can pipe in here with your thoughts, but like, what do you think about the situation? What do you think the remedy should be? What should GW do? Because at this point, it's not a production issue; it's a PR issue, as far as I'm concerned. Right? They've created a huge amount of bad will towards the community who trusted them, and they've broken that trust with the community. And now, in the future, when they're like, "Hey, this is not going to be limited release," can you trust them? No. Now, and they're actually perpetuating that culture, just like me and that LGS. We're on full lockdown here in Vancouver, like for another 6 weeks. I can't even see my friends. So who the hell am I going to play Curse City with? Like, unless I want to, do a bunch of drugs and get schizophrenic and basically play with myself, which actually doesn't sound so bad now that I say it out loud. But who am I going to play with? No one. So like, I don't need this, and I never even played Warhammer Quest, and all my friends probably got a box too, so I don't even need one for myself. But I guess 90% of the reason I bought it is because I was worried I wouldn't be able to get it later. So Daniel, what is your thoughts on this? Do you think that this is, and what do you think GW should do? What would be the right thing to do here?
Yeah, so I think part of it is because of the distribution issues we've been having. It's just exacerbated the entire like online shopping experience because we can't go to the LGSs and pick them up. They're restricting even how many they're sending to some of the LGSs. So it's kind of, you have to buy it online, and the market is cornered in such a way that scalpers, whoever's first gets it, and then scalping is a snowball effect. So as soon as some people start doing it and those things sell, that set the market, and now everyone is going to sell it at that baseline, if not more. So that's part of this whole issue. And now to your point, if I didn't follow it super closely myself because I don't play a lot of the side games, but if the communication from a company is in this case, hey guys, this is the start of a good thing we're going to be doing. We're going to have all these expansions. Like, you'll be able to get it if you want it. And then all of a sudden it sells out. Oh, sorry guys. Like, that's it. That sets up a ton of people into just a bad position. And now they're having to deal with the scalpers. So it's really hard to find someone who's even like, hey, I got 2 at my LGS. I'll sell them to you retail plus shipping. Like, you almost can't do that just because people are going into these stores, just like they're doing with Pokemon. If you've been following the Pokemon card game or any of these other things, they're understanding so many people are in lockdown. They're desperate for entertainment, and now they go in entertainment from them and then sell it back at a higher cost. So to me, the scalpers have really compounded an issue that Games Workshop already kind of screwed up.
My doorbell just went, so that just scared the shit out of me. Just give me 1 sec. You can keep talking, I can hear you, but I can see what's going on at my door.
Yeah, you're good, brother. So yeah, that's like mostly my biggest point is we've got a compounded issue between scalpers and Games Workshop's distribution, and then they just like, you've got all the gasoline all on this kindling, and then like the match is, oh yeah, limited release. They strike that match and it just blows up. Like it's to that point. Like kind of my same thought with the Dark Eldar release. We got something crazy overpowered. Like, when something can get through to this point and it's that poorly received, like Jim said, someone might need to evaluate the job, like who's in those positions and who's letting this stuff happen, because it makes it difficult for the end user. And I don't want my hobby to be difficult in the context of being able to enjoy the hobby. Like, let the difficult part be tournaments and playing against Lennon and that shit whenever I want to go to an RTT. Let that be the difficult part, not trying to buy models. Why is that hard? Why are racks $100 for 5 right now?
Yeah, and like, I mean, Look, I'm willing to give Games Workshop a lot of slack, especially due to the fact that the factories are closed. We've all been going through a pandemic. I'm less worried about, if something goes out of stock and it takes a while to come back in because they have production issues, because just, they're running at half capacity or anything along those lines. I'm very willing to forgive them on that. Like, we're all dealing with this pandemic. Not every organization or company is set up in a way to have to deal with these kinds of adjustments. Like, maybe they actually need 100 people there, pressing buttons on the machine because it's not automated enough to actually and doing it at 50% literally means it's 50% slower or a quarter, whatever, right? Like, I'm very willing to give them that slack. I think the bigger issue is that they came out, they made multiple public statements saying that this was not going to be a limited release, and then waited till the book things sold out, right? Waited till the things sold out, and then basically turned around and said, no, actually it was a limited release. So, and then not only that, but like, they didn't apologize. They didn't say, hey, we screwed up. Apparently they even went back and deleted all the tweets where they said it wasn't public release when it wasn't a limited release. Like, that was actually, it wasn't just like they misspoke earlier and then they changed their minds. Like, they knew that this was an issue because they actually went back and deleted all the posts. Someone has evidence, like there's like photo evidence there of them deleting all the posts.
And the pre-orders going on the site right now. Pre-order and new release. It's not even on the site.
So with that said, so that's a big issue.
Yeah.
So I think ultimately they need to do what they did with Indomitus. That's, I think, the only solution is they need to put it back on pre-order, made to order. Maybe it takes 4 months, whatever. But if people want a copy, they should be able to get a copy. And this whole idea of limited releases, like, I don't know, it's one thing to do it with, say, like a card game, when like there's a big resale market where cards appreciate in value. So I can see the value in something like MTG, where over time cards appreciate, right? Certain cards, obviously, the things that are on the reserve list, like older editions, like normal standard, it's not really gonna like move. Maybe like, and sealed boxes might move in like 20 years for like normal standard, but in general, and I don't even play MTG, but I know enough about MTG to like know like how that whole system works. So it's one thing where there's a limited release where there's appreciation, there's value in that limitedness, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's another thing, like, tell me about a Warhammer model that was printed 20 years ago that is now worth 10 times the cost. It just literally doesn't exist. Like, something brand new from like, say, the 90s might charge, if it's super limited, it might be like double in price to try to track one down, barely. But it is not but I guess my point is there's not a whole community of people that invest in Warhammer models as an investment, but people definitely do that in MTG.
I honestly think that like it's really difficult to compare Warhammer to Magic the Gathering. There are like millions of Magic the Gathering players. Right. The price of inclusion is much cheaper than 40K. And frankly, like, I think there are a lot of collector's items that came out in the last 20 years that people go crazy. Yeah, I agree. Chaos Mammoth, really hot item that people would like die for. I have a Sergeant Centurious model. Like, that's a 30-year-old model. No, not 30-year-old. Probably 25. These models have value. They're limited run models, like the GW Skulls program.
I remember that.
Any model that was in that.
Yeah, so David, I agree with you. I'm not comparing them to say that they're the same. I'm actually saying they're different. So in MTG, because there is appreciation and value in these things, having limited runs makes sense. But in the Warhammer, doing limited runs of like a box set, a game box set for a core box set game like Warhammer Quest, which takes, I don't know about Magic, but I bet you, like, the art obviously takes a little while, and then the card rule, and then the printing. So I bet you they could make a Magic card from start to finish in a few months. Once the art's done, right? Yeah. Warhammer models take 3 years to make.
Yeah.
Right? From concept art to sculpting to 3D molding to all from start to finish, you're looking at a 3-year lead time on the models that we're seeing right now coming out were sculpted 3 years ago on the whole, in general, right? So my point is actually that they are different, and that there's no reason that Games Workshop should be having limited releases on these things when literally there is no value. So there's no downside to printing more, or even if it is made to order.
Unless they lose money.
But this is why I'm saying made to order. So like, I actually think every one of these like boxes, like the next Warhammer Quest, the next AOS 3 box, whatever, they should all move to a blended hybrid model of they print a minimum amount, and then they also do a made to order. Just do it automatically
Yeah,
without any sort of like.
But you're talking about a manufacturing plant that you're like made to order. When does the manufacturing begin for those made to order orders? Like, we live in a community where we like spontaneously buy things and we want them right now, or that we want them within a week. Now, if you're doing made to order, the fact you have to fill molds, make boxes, package them, things
Sorry.
like that, it kicks a lot of money, manpower, effort, and
Right.
storage. And if you're gonna be like, oh, like, you know what, let's just like dump a bunch of money into a bunch of made to order things, it's not profitable for GW in the grand scheme of things, because it takes manpower, storage, shipping.
And let me just clarify. I don't mean that like it's like a McDonald's where like I make my order and then they make it as like directly like one-to-one. I just mean for some of these boxes that we all know are going to sell out, if they do sell out,
yeah,
then they open up a period where they're like, hey, for this only of this very small selection. I'm not saying they do this like it's like, hey, I want more Deathwing Terminators. So the factory guy goes and like throws in the mold and prints me one, and then he puts a different mold and prints others. Like, I'm not advocating that. I'm just saying for some of these core box sets that we know are limited, that are gonna sell out, they should, like, especially for things like Curse City where there's definitely public desire for these things, they definitely need to do a better job. And again, even if they don't do that, let's say they don't listen to us, their communication on these issues, especially when they screwed up, they need to fix it. It's not about, if they'd said it's limited from the start, I actually wouldn't be upset. I'd say,
what do you want to do now? Like, Tim, we're at the point where what the arrow has left the bow. It's in flight. Like, what do you want GW to do now? Like, an apology and get their shit together? Like, what do you want them to do? Like,
apologize for shooting him in the knee with that arrow. So honestly, if they do a limited release, the reason it works for Magic the Gathering is you have a set rotation. You can buy whatever cards you want from that set. You can buy boxes, boosters, whatever, for 2 years. And so I know if I want this, I have a 2-year window to buy this crap. And then if I don't, and there's something really OP and it goes away, well, that's on me for not buying it for 2 years. I'm not saying they have to do these limited release things for 2 years or anything, but instead of, we have 1,000 in the factory, we don't tell you we have 1,000. You just order, and then when they're out, they're out. Like, that feels bad for anyone, communication or not. Like, if they tell us the known quantity and they have a program to stop bots from buying it and scalping it, like usually happens. But if they tell us there's a known quantity, you can buy 1,000. Okay, you get a cool little number printed. That's great. I love it. Otherwise, if they're not doing that, a limited release should be, hey, you have this window of time to buy it. And to Jim's point, they could print 5,000, stick them in a box, and then for like every 100 or 500 or whatever it takes to be profitable, orders after that, that's when they go to print to fill that bulk set of orders. And they can put a disclaimer on their website. It's not like distribution. As if there's a supply greater than, or a demand greater than the supply, they'll make money. That's just how it works. So they.
Sorry, go ahead. Finish your thought, Daniel.
Go ahead. I was just gonna say, like, they can put themselves in a position to win pretty easily, and if they have like production loss of cost or loss of profit in the production of the elements because it's a different, then put those online. I don't know why they're allergic to putting documentation online. Well, if it's $200 for the whole box set, sell models only for $175. You give them a $25 discount. You're making money hand over fist on $12 worth of plastic. And like, you can only make money with that model. And I don't know why they're allergic to it.
Right. Yeah. And I guess just to finish kind of this topic, because I want to move on to some other things. I think at the end of the day, GW needs to recognize that they screwed this one up. And again, specifically in regards to their communication. So if they want to make limited things, great, make limited. Just say it's limited. If they're going to make things that are unlimited and they say they're unlimited, then keep them unlimited. But don't tell us something is limited or unlimited and then make it limited. I think that's the core issue. And given that they've screwed up, they need to make it right. Like just like in any business, if you screw up someone's meal at a restaurant, or you sell them something, or if you just execute bad business practices, it's on you as a good steward, like a good operator, to do your best to take care of your customers. And I think that's ultimately the issue. And whether or not GW has the, like, I guess, self-awareness to say, hey, this actually upset a lot of people, this situation, and we're going to try to do our best to make it right, then that's a question that is yet to be seen. I'm optimistic that they're going to say something or at least address it, because they didn't even apologize. Like, it's not like they said, guys, we really screwed up, we're sorry, this thing happened. They were just like, yeah, sorry, it's limited, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, so anyway, so I guess that's my final thought on it. I don't know if you guys have any kind of quick final
And
thoughts.
they're not really going to apologize. Like, think about this.
Line.
I mean, like, let's be real here. The fact that this is a limited run product, like, we're not going to quit the hobby. We're not going to go out in the streets and, like, boycott GW.
Right.
Like, we're all a bunch of, like, plastic heroin addicts that just, like, want our fix. And then, like, we just missed this one, and they know that. And that they'll be like, I know you're pissed, but now, like, look at all the new sisters. Oh, look at the Bellicor. Jim, 4 Bellicors for you. You don't even have to think about cursing
yeah,
anymore.
I might actually buy for it. All right,
You're gonna
guys.
be up to your neck in
I think that was good. I think we got our hopefully got it off our chest. So I want to turn to kind of the second big drama, I guess the bigger drama. Over the weekend we had the Fabricators Forge GT in someplace in like northeastern. Where's that place? I feel like it's somewhere in the northeast. It was won by a Drukari list, I believe. But obviously some of the games were streamed, and the TO Dom basically posted in Reddit just kind of outlining his, he posted some videos of the event. He posted all the games that they streamed, etc. And then someone went and watched some of the games, and basically, I won't get into like each individual thing, but there was an accusation of cheating made against TJ Lanigan, who I think came in third place in the event. And obviously the person that saw these like incidents of cheating put the timestamps, they put the specific thing that happened that they believe was cheating, and obviously the internet blew up. And so now, and I just want to give you guys the full disclosure. Now what's happened is the TOs have gone back. They've looked at the tape. There's been obviously 1,000 hot takes on the situation on the internet. They've issued a ruling on these accusations, and essentially what has happened now is that TJ has been DQ'd from the GT, resulting in a 0 score for that specific circuit. His prize support was voided and redirected. He's gotten a 30-day suspension from the Northeast 40K tournaments, which includes Mythicos, Battle for Salvation, Golden Spree, Basement Wargamers, The Portal. And then also the thing is that he'll get a yellow card at the next event. And then obviously, if he gets successive violations, he'll be suspended from 1 year from that circuit to not attend those tournaments. Now, full disclosure,
So
and I'm sure
what did he
Dave
do?
So I won't get into the specifics, but it was just some shady dice rolling, just some like gameplay things. And if you guys want to hear the details specifically of exactly what was called out, just go to Warhammer Competitive on Reddit, scroll down to Fabricators Forge topic, and then it's like basically the first post because it's got 154 upvotes. And then obviously after this issue happened, there was a massive pile-on. A million people had their hot takes. And I'm going to have some full disclosure, and I'm sure David will have some full disclosure before we get into this topic, which is two things. A, I've met TJ many times. I have nothing wrong with him personally. Like, I would call him a friend, to be honest. Like, I think that he's a great guy. We always have a good time. With that said, I've played him twice, and I've had not great experiences in those games, and I don't want to go back over it. Like, TJ actually talked to me today, and basically he was like asking me about it. And long story short, it doesn't matter. Those old games actually don't matter to me anymore because that was almost 2 years ago. And a really good thing that I do want to talk about on a future episode of Politics and Paint, and just as a quick teaser, I'm going to have Neil Kerr on in about 2 weeks on Politics and Paint. And one of the things we're going to talk about is if someone does get caught cheating, or if there's cheaters in the community, and say you admit you cheated, right? Just like Daniel did today. He's a big cheater. What is the path of redemption, or what should you do if you're caught cheating? What does that look like? And if you guys actually want also a really good episode on cheating, the War Mistress Tanya Gates just released an episode with Val on her channel, so I definitely go check it out where they talk about cheaters in the hobby. But I guess I just wanted to say right out of the gates that I have nothing wrong with TJ. Like, he's a great guy, always been super nice to me, but his table play is something that I personally, when I play him, have not always had a good time because I felt like I've always had to watch really carefully. And again, I don't want to reiterate those games. I'm not going to go through details and stuff like that. And from reading the thread in the Reddit, there's been a lot of other people that felt the same way, that there's something shady there. There's like a shady undertone. And I guess my question to you, and I know David, you're really good friends with TJ, so I wanted to ask kind of what your thoughts are and what you think he should do, and then Daniel, your thoughts as well. But I guess the question is like, do you think that what do you guys think of this whole situation? Obviously, it was caught by third parties in the stream. It wasn't caught at the day of. It was caught after the fact. It was, there's punishment given after the fact. So I know this is something we talked about in the very first episode of the stream when we talked about if cheating is discovered after. So I'm actually glad that the TOs did something. But I guess I just want to hear your initial thoughts on the situation and maybe Daniel, I think it seems like David's looking up the topic right now. I don't know if that's what he's reading right now.
Yeah, I have
But-
no idea what's going on. Jim's
Daniel,
like, by the way,
maybe give me
you
your
did something. And I'm
why
like,
don't you give us your first kind of your impression of the situation and what you think? And again, it's not I want to be really clear. We're not here to trash people. We just want to talk about the specific incident and obviously the consequences that should happen or shouldn't happen. If this isn't like something where we don't want to attack people's character personally. It's just about like this is the situation, and if you want to attack their character personally, I won't stop you. This is a totally unfiltered and uncensored podcast, but that's not something I'm going to engage in. But feel free if that's something that you want to do. But Daniel, what are your thoughts initially? While you get going, I can hear everyone. I'm just going to grab another drink. Please go ahead.
All right. Yeah, I'll dive in. So, essentially, like in Florida, there was a ton of that similar style shady behavior, whether it was clock manipulation or like fast rolling dice where you pick them up real fast, or picking up hits instead of picking up misses where it's hard to track it. Like little things like that do directly impact the game. And if your opponent is being untruthful, then they can get away with a lot of little things. And when you're playing a game competitively, you're on the same level. Small things like that completely alter the outcome. Like you roll 6 3-up invulnerable saves. The expectation is to pass 4. So if I pick up 4 successes real fast, you don't know, like I might have had 4 1s and a 2 there, but if I pick up 4 dice real fast, well, the expectation is I made 4 3-ups. Nobody really thinks about it. But it's that type of play over and over again that directly affects the outcome of the game. So that was what drove Brohammer to become a thing, was we didn't like that mentality, and we wanted those players to White Claw, nice. We wanted those players either to straighten up their act or get out of the scene. There's no place for you to be cheating to win. That killing the competitive integrity of a game, there's no point in playing it anymore. There's obviously you want to play to the maximum extent the rules allow, and if you win at that point, then you're great at the game. But if you have to manipulate small things to gain illegal advantages, you're not good at the game. You just apparently are good at lying, or you're comfortable enough putting yourself in front of competitive integrity of the game and putting yourself in front of the opponent. It's a very selfish thing to do in general. I'm not calling any one person out. Just in general, that was years ago what I hated about the competitive scene and what I wanted out of Florida. If I'm going to an event, I don't want to deal with that crap. And so we see that come up here and there. And I know there's a difference between mistakes and pattern of behavior. Like there's mistakes. Brohammer, we've had crap come up.
I've made
People have
mistakes
said
many
stuff.
times.
Yeah, I brought two Lords of War to a tournament that I wasn't supposed to. Like that crap happens. But I made a mistake. I recognize I made a mistake. I dropped from the event. I take action before the TO has to. Okay, you're acknowledging an honest mistake. It sucks, whatever.
Right.
If in this specific instance, it appears, and I'm not going to be too demonstrative and just make claims because I've never played against TJ. I've never talked to him personally. I don't know the dude. He seems nice enough every time I've listened to him on various like podcasts and everything. I like his insight into the game. So I don't have a negative thought in my heart towards that dude, except what I've witnessed recently is if you're comfortable enough to fudge the dice, fudge the wounds, fudge things that are observable on a stream where people are going to go back and watch it, if you're that confident in yourself to get away with it, that tells me you've done it more than once.
Right.
It's not a pressure of the moment. It's not a, okay, like, oh crap. I mean, it's it's a pattern of behavior that is trained and so integral into what you're doing that you don't think you can get caught even on stream. And that to me is the red flag, and why I like what the TO did in the punishment: strip the scores, strip everything. But you're not just kicking the dude out. Like, I want him to say, that sucks, I'm sorry, I need to change, and like get into like better yourself and prove it to the community. Like, we had dudes who joined Brohammer and played with us who were known cheaters previously, and almost all of them came into the community. They saw the standard we carried and they improved.
Right.
And that's the whole point. Like, I don't want to just like get the pitchforks out and run someone out of town, but like they got to be willing, I guess.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll let David get in here because I'm not sure if he wants to add anything.
Dude, I've been like searching on my phone for this. Can you just like tell me what he did?
I just
Like, I'm
linked it
like,
in the
sick
chat.
All right, I don't read well. Just tell me. Just like, for the people in stream, it's just easier. Just say it.
Okay,
Like,
so,
it just
so
makes it.
basically, just to
say it.
summarize, there was 4 accusations of, and they're mostly related to dice rolls, where he,
Okay.
and they're all time stamped. Basically, he said he rolled a 3, but he rolled a 2. He said he rolled a 6, he rolled a 5. He said it was something was X, and it was not X. So it was like multiple times where he basically manipulated dice rolls to in his favor when the opponent wasn't looking, and claimed that
Okay.
certain results were not correct. So that was essentially the accusations, and people have
Were
reviewed.
they using dice boxes on stream?
I didn't actually watch the stream. I only watched parts of the stream. I mean, I don't think it's.
Oh.
I mean, they didn't on this specific stream, but it's at 1080p the stream, and people like looked at the video very carefully, and it's very obvious that certain dice rolls are what he said they aren't or are, and so the evidence objectively it's not ambiguous, like the evidence. Now, maybe one out of these 5 or 6 different incidents could have been like, if this was happened one time, I think maybe we could have said, okay, maybe like he misread it, but this happens probably 5 or 6 times in the game where he says a dice roll like, hey, it's like I need a 2 to hit, but he actually, or a 3 to hit, and he rolls a 2 and he says it's a hit. Like, it's just stuff like that. So again, if you guys weren't interested, I posted the link in the chat. You can go check it out.
Okay.
But I guess the question is now he's in a situation where he's the number 1 in the ITC due to this event. He's had multiple accusations of cheating. He's had punishment applied to him by the TOs. What do you think should be done, not just from TJ's perspective? What do you think the ITC should do? What do you think we should do as a community do moving forward? Because I've seen just about I've seen a lot of piling on, a lot of people dumping on him. And if I didn't already, I want to once again recommend the War Mistress's episode on cheaters. She just posted it earlier this week. But they actually do get into a whole conversation around whether or not there's kind of different types of cheating. So like, obviously, like, making mistakes, as you mentioned, Daniel, we all make mistakes, right? And one of the things that I was advocating for in a previous, I guess, episode was that we need very strict, and this is why I kind of get into it, we need very strict, specific punishments, I guess, for quote unquote mistakes or these kinds of things. So it's like, whether it was a mistake or whether you did it on purpose, it's actually not material to the outcome. So if I say, if I'm playing hockey and I slash someone by accident as a mistake, I still get a penalty. The ref doesn't care what my intent was, right? So in that sense, I do think there should be more codified penalties and outcomes based on the incident. So whether it's you lose a game or you lose points or you're DQ'd, whatever that, and the community can kind of ultimately figure out what that's going to be. But that's one of the reasons that I advocated for very specific targeted outcomes based on these kinds of things, whether it was intentional or not, because the intent part, that's the hardest part to prove. And so we need to remove that and just say, you know what, you made a mistake, but the game that we play, if you make mistakes, this is the outcome. That's it. Like in chess, if I move my queen, or if I move my like knight 4 squares forward instead of in the little L thing that it can do, that could have been a cheating or it could have been a mistake. But who's to know? Either way, that I would get DQ'd from the game for making an illegal move. Like, no one cares that what I thought I was doing. No, no one wants to hear that part of the story. Yeah. And I would say, and I'd love to think that we're all held to that standard, and we probably aren't. But I'd especially like to think that if you're in the top 10, 20, 30 in the ITC, you should be kept held to a much higher standard, because not only are you competing against for like something that's actually material, but you're also a representative and ambassador for the game. So your level of play and standards should be unimpeachable as far as I'm concerned. So I don't know, David, if based on all that I've said, you have any kind of additional thoughts. And again, yeah, so let me know.
Okay. First question: when can we talk about hobby and painting?
We're
But
getting there. We're just still on news and
We'll
news
get
and weekly
there.
hot takes.
We're like an hour
Right.
in. Anyway, so the thing about TJ is like, TJ's my boy. I really like him a lot. We travel together. We talk tech all the time, and frankly, like, I play against TJ not very often because TJ and I usually don't run into each other on the top table because I'm usually somewhere in like the pudgy middle. That's usually where I land. But one thing I do notice about TJ when we do play is that TJ's mind works much faster than his hands and voice work. And Jim, you can attest to this. When you play against TJ, he'll be rolling dice for like some random thing. Like, what are you doing? He's like, I wanted to see that if I had this ability, what I would have gotten. Because in your eyes, you're probably like, are you just fucking with me? You could, right, Jim?
Yeah.
When we play,
That's happened.
he does like this random like off the side dice rolls. Like, what the fuck are you even doing? And he's like, I wanted to see what would have happened if I had to roll those dice. And you're like, why the fuck would I have to do that? Jim's so TJ's a numbers guy. He's an accountant. He's like an obsessive numbers person, and he does a lot of unnecessary dice rolls. And when I play against him, when we're playing like when I played him at like Can Hammer team event in the first round, he's just doing like he was like mopping the floor with me, doing a stupid amount of unnecessary dice rolls, and I'm like, what are you doing? Why am I doing the stupidest fucking point? Are you just Corey Schultz, whoever you are you like an angry person who you like this happened to you and you got spited by him? I'm just going through a narrative. What I'm saying is like, I'm not trying to make excuses
Right.
for him. Anyways, just saying like, I know him and I've played against him multiple times and I've been around him for a very long time. Like 6 years amount of time, not like one round. Anyways, I'm not denying that he did something shitty. I don't know what he did. I don't even know. I haven't even watched the video.
Right.
So frankly, like, what I'm saying is like, if he rolled things on terrain, that was
Right.
shitty of him. And honestly, like, if he did something shitty and people caught him out on it, TJ needs to rectify somehow. And it sucks because it like
Right.
hurts me to know that like he does wrong. That I have to admit, like, TJ, my boy, like, if you fucked up, like, you got to come clean with it. And I know, like, right now you're doing a lot of work trying to build yourself up as, like, a chaos, like, 40K competitive coach. And that's really important to, like, your reputation. But at the same time is, like, trying to have a strong, like, a clean reputation is more important than just
Right.
winning. And I know that, like, winning seems like a really important thing, but doing it cleanly is the most important part. And, you know, when it comes to him, like, dice going on terrain, and if people caught him, you know, catching the wrong dice, then yeah,
Right.
like, he needs to, like, the
And-
book thrown at him. And it
Yeah, and
sucks. Like, it really
I just
sucks.
want to
Because he's a great addition to the 40K community. And that he did something like this is really kind of a
right.
bummer.
And I just want to bring in a few comments from chat. So most of the chat is piling on as usual. So a lot of saying people are saying it's obvious. People are saying ban him for life. No ITC points for 1 year. Chris Powell, how are you? Someone is saying that David's point is the stupidest fucking point. Sorry.
I wasn't even trying to make a point. I was
Someone says so suspicious. Anyways, lots of people basically saying that it. But I guess so. Here's and actually this kind of really goes back to the point. I think that the first best overall show, David, when we had where I talked about the issues of the I think Clutch City GT with Naden with the Ingrid legal list. The whole argument that I was making actually totally rings home here, which is, look, we will never know at this point what was in TJ's mind. But if there is evidence, whether intentional or unintentional, that someone either made a misplay, cheated, manipulated dice, got a rule wrong to the point where it cost them the game, then regardless of like whether they intended it to or not. So in this case, say it turns out, and you know we'll never know TJ's heart, right? But say we had a machine that could tell us in his heart of hearts, a magic machine, and we hook TJ up and we're like, did you cheat? And he's like, no. So we know his intent. He never tried to cheat. Maybe he made some mistakes. Maybe he was tired, whatever. A million reasons. Let's pretend, even if that was true, the outcome, which is the stripping of the points, the penalty, that shouldn't matter. That should all be the same. And my point is that because we can never know whether someone cheated intentionally or unintentionally, once and again, I use the word cheating lightly, they made a mistake, right? If I say my thing is T8 when it's T7 and it makes me win the game and it's found out afterwards, I should then it should go back and I should lose that game, right? Because of the fact that we can't ever know about these mistakes, we can't ever know the heart of the players, the mind of the players. The punishment and the like remedy needs to be absolute and black and white, and it should not rely on whether or not we think he's a cheater, whether he has a shady past or a clean past, because maybe someone that has never been caught cheating all of a sudden is thinking, hey, I've never been caught, then maybe I'll start cheating a little bit. So what my whole point, and this kind of goes back to this kind of conversation, and check out Best of World Show episode 1 if you want to hear more about my thoughts, is that our judging system and the system that we use to punish or penalize players when it comes to cheating and misplays needs to be strict and based on actions, not intent. And so regardless of your intent, if you do X, you get Y. That's it. There's no questioning whether it was on purpose or not. No one cares at the end of the day. It's irrelevant, right? And so that's the stance that, and you know, obviously John, when we had John on, David, he had a very different opinion, but I still, seeing an incident like this, I'm like, look, I don't know, you know, we don't know what was going through TJ's head, and many people will say that he did it intentionally. I'm not gonna make a judgment here because, like, who knows? But it doesn't look good, is what I'll say. It looks really bad. And first, I think he needs to address it. I think he needs to take it head on and say, hey, look, this does look really bad. I recognize that I made these mistakes, if they're true, and I'm going to voluntarily, you know, basically give up those points or whatever, right? He needs to do the right thing. And even if he didn't mean to cheat, because he made those mistakes, he's disqualified regardless. Just like if he didn't mean to step over the line or slash someone, you still take the penalty, you know? So that's kind of my, I guess.
No, he should. I'm not against the whole thing about him being penalized. Like, this is an important thing. Like, if like we're trying, see, like, the thing to me is, like, y'all gotta know, like, when it comes to 40K, I give everyone the benefit of the doubt and I just let them do what they fucking want. Because, like, at the end of the day, like someone mentioned earlier, we're playing war dollies. Like, it's plastic models and I'm on vacation, and this is not a fucking esport. And I get it. Like, the person's word and the person's, like, strength of character should be more important. And I agree, like, people shouldn't get awards for winning when they cheat. But at the same time, it's like, where am I going? Yeah, you're right.
I want to know how drunk you are, which is a great question.
So,
Daniel,
probably
any final thoughts? Because I definitely want to.
Very heavy rum drinks and some wine, and I don't really know where this line of thought was going. Yeah, right. I want to talk
We're about
to
as soon as we wrap up this topic, we're gonna get into that. Daniel, you keep going.
Throw the book at him.
But David, actually, you reminded me of the whole thing. What you just said there is key. You said you give people the benefit of the doubt, and if it matters that much to them, they're going to cheat. Like, you don't care. That's what that style of play is preying on. The social contract of, you don't want confrontation. You're not going to say anything.
Oh no, when people start cheating against me, I'm very vocal.
You're an outspoken person.
That, like,
I can tell that from 5 minutes hanging out with you. It goes back to kind of what we talked about the other earlier. Is some people, they're timid. It's a beer and pretzels. They're trying to have fun and just have a good game. There's different personalities, and there's a social contract for non-confrontation that so many people adhere to that it's easy to exploit that for gain if you don't care about cheating. And that's, again, a bigger conversation to be had, but people abuse that all the time in order to gain an advantage. And it might be cheating, it might not be cheating. They might just be an asshole to try to get a competitive advantage. And you're afraid to say something. They call judges all the time because you're allowed to call a judge. You should call a judge if you have a dispute, but they do that early and often to intimidate you with a couple simple rulings they know. And they're like, well, I know this, so stop questioning me. And then that sets them up to then cheat later. Like, they're abusing a social contract in order to get their way, to get that competitive advantage. And unless someone else has a similar outspoken personality, like you obviously do, to say, "Hey, man, that's bullshit. Just stop." Like if
Daniel,
they
have you
gonna,
seen people with like celebrity status like pressure their opponents? Have you actually seen that like in play?
yes.
Yeah.
Short answer.
I've seen it too.
No, I've had that happen to me.
So,
I think we all had
full disclosure, I've seen it, and I've also seen new players do it to themselves. Like I've rolled up to a table.
Yeah.
Even in our TTS like Greek Hammer thing we're playing, like we're playing teams in Germany, people I've never met in my life that barely heard of me, and they're like, "Oh, I'm playing Jim Vessel." They're really intimidated. I'm like, "What? Like what are you talking about? I literally played 6 games at ninth. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing." So like people not only do good players do that probably sometimes, but also players when they play the good players do that to themselves. They like sometimes they're like, "Oh, I'm gonna lose. I'm playing Jim Vessel," and I'm like, "No, I'm actually like a mediocre player most of the time, and like don't really know my fucking ass from my arm." But somehow they like end up beating themselves because they just give up. They're like, "Oh well, Jim he did something, and now I'm losing. It's game over, right?" And so oh yeah, so I do want to move on, but there's a few comments I just want to throw in there. Chris Powell says it's not an esport because of that. Chris, if you tune into Politics and Plastic on Tuesday, I'm talking to Val Huffinger about how to make 40K into an esport, and not just whether we could, but whether we should. So great teaser for the episode. Trendy Love said the repercussions will always be too much or too little, but something has to be done. I agree. Basically, Corey said he physically threatened someone at LVO for cheating. That's not good. Don't kill anyone. And then
do that.
That's basically it. So okay, so that's it. So wow, we're an hour and 20 minutes in. That was the weekly news. So now let's get into the actual podcast.
Right.
So
yeah.
So the next thing we're going to talk about, guys, is current projects, books read, consumed, games played. So David, why don't you start since you seem to be very excited to talk about this?
Oh man, I've been reading like Mad Black Library books lately. I read the second book in the Valerian series, which is I think is like
is that the Custodia dude with the chick?
Yeah. Yeah, it's actually kind of cool because there's a lot of different books recently that came out maybe in the last like 2 or 3 years that talk about like life on Terra and all of like the weird like shady doings. Like in the new Valerian book, there's like a coup on Terra with the High Lords, and it's fucking
so, for those
madness.
of you that have not read them, when are these books set? Is it 30K, 40K, and is it like is it are they like is it yeah? Tell us. We're done.
Yeah, so the Valerian series, is really cool. It takes place right before the Indominus Crusade, like right when the Rift opens. So the first book takes place when yeah, that's why I just don't say it because I just sound really stupid when I try and say 40K things, so I just kind of like skip it. Okay. So I save grace a little bit, just a little bit.
Okay. And you're in book 2?
Yeah, so book 2 is really interesting. I just finished reading that, and I know a while ago we were talking about the Eisenhorn series, and I was on a trip last week, and I read about like half of the Magos, which is like an Eisenhorn novella like compilation.
Yeah, it's like I believe most of the stories are set in between after Ravenor, but before the Beckwin trilogy, before Pariah, I believe. I think we just lost David. He's frozen.
Yeah, he's super frozen.
Oh, there he is. He's back.
All right.
Welcome back, David.
Hey.
I was like, how big? Because you like froze like this. So, anyways.
Yeah.
I was very excited about that. It's a very long chair.
I'm just gonna stay like this for a while. What's up, guys?
Sorry, David. So you're saying you're reading Valerian, and then what have you been working on hobby-wise and games? Anything like that?
I'm working on this Cataphrine Destroyer. I'm on like week 2 because I've been out of town and painting in deserts which aren't conducive to your paint quality. It gets really goopy and dries really quick in the sun. So if you guys are painting in the desert, make sure you bring water, extra water. Anyways, yeah, so I've been painting a little bit, hobbying. I bought an Invictus Warsuit, and I am so excited for this. I
Oh,
got
nice.
myself one of
Is it
these
the-
Warbringer Nemesis
Oh,
Titans.
I thought it was the new one. I was like, that's sad. The new one is super cool.
No, it's got the ugly fucking stubby arms and the volcano cannon on top. I have been looking forever for one of these, and I was in Utah, and this one store had like 3 of them, and I'm like, do I buy 2?
Okay,
I bought 1.
David, I
sorry.
have a I
Um,
need you to answer a very important question for the listeners. How many games Titanic
yes.
have you actually played? Because I feel like everyone just likes Titanic and talks about Titanic, but no one actually plays Titanic yet. So can you just
Oh, dude, I've played actually like a handful of
Okay.
games. They're super fun. And like every single the sad part is like when you play 40K, you'll paint like and build like a unit and then you can play like the next week. For me, it's like I paint like I build like half a mana pool of new Titans, and then like 3 months later I get to play and I'm like, fuck yeah! I built all this new terrain and all these new models. And I finally get to play like a game of it. And it ends really quick because all my shit explodes in my deployment zoning, kills all my own Titans, which is also really fun. But yeah, I got a game in about 2 weeks ago. Super excited. We had over. Jim's very excited. You can see him texting how excited he is. Calling you out, boy.
sorry.
We had about 50. No worries. We had like 60 Phobos Marines on the table between myself and my opponent. It was hilarious. And also made me think about the effectiveness of Phobos Marines in competitive play because of the amount of stratagems and the amount of tools they actually do have. And I know a lot of people probably just kind of shun them, but they have a lot of value. And it's per chapter, there's a lot of value within them. Like Blood Angels, White Scars, like Raven Guard, like they are amazing.
Okay, so
actually.
okay, I don't. That's cool. Sorry, I just got some drama updates, and I want to share live with the chat. So as of now, it sounds
Okay.
like TJ has been kicked off Team America, the WTC team for Team America by Sean Naden. So just trying to give you guys the
Oof.
latest live breaking news. And Brandon Grant has confirmed that
Ouch.
news. And I got another text saying that that was just a meme, but someone else saying that he is done for the season, which I don't know if that's correct or not, but obviously the pieces are moving. It's not looking good. Like obviously other parties besides that person have looked at the evidence and concluded that it stinks. So
Interesting.
Yeah.
No, I don't think TJ is done. I think he loves his hobby too much.
I'm sure
I don't
he'll
think
play
he's gonna
more.
hide.
And
Yeah,
I'm sure if you're TJ, if you're listening on I believe May 11th, I'm doing an episode with Neil Kerr, who's the head judge of the WTC, on how to redeem your reputation if you've been accused or caught in cheating. So I would highly recommend tuning in to that because it's going to be a great episode of Politics and Plastic. Anyways, Daniel, what have you been working on? Books read, games played. Tell us about kind of your hobby situation, what you've been doing.
All right. How do I follow that up?
Just figured I'd fit in as many shameless plugs as I can.
How many Necrons have you been working on?
So Necrons, yeah, have that entire army in my house right now. So without going super deep, I had a surprise roommate for a month and a half, and my best friend I was talking about that we started playing Warhammer together.
Mhm.
And we decided to acquire an entire Deathwatch army, an entire Necrons army, finish our Dark Angels, and nice, Jim.
Someone asked me if I was drinking Mango White Claw. By the way, for those of you that are listening to this on the podcast, David is drinking wine straight out of a bottle, and I'm on my like 4th drink. I believe Daniel is sober, so I'm not. I think maybe not.
El Coto
Not
from
to say that this
Rioja.
is a drunken podcast, but I just felt it was appropriate to get through all the like
We've been
drama
having
today that
bad days.
we needed something a little bit to get us through.
Yeah. So in an effort to not be an alcoholic, having a surprise roommate for a month and a half, I drank almost every night for like 2 weeks, and then I decided I need to just on the weekends. So this is the only reason I don't have a drink right now. But essentially, I've been playing Beer Hammer, a la old school Brohammer, a couple times a week, just drinking too much, putting whatever, like any competitive army not named Dark Eldar, because they're literally impossible to get a hold of right now. We've just thrown on the table, played a turn or two with, tried out Necrons versus Deathwatch, Tyranids versus Death Guard, any combination we could think of. We just throw it on the table and grab a couple beers and see how that matchup interacts. Almost like rapid fire hardcore practice, trying to get ready for GTs and stuff.
Mhm.
So we both been painting. I suck at painting, so I've been building models. He's been building and painting models because the dude's a machine. And yeah, I think we've pretty much gotten 8,000 points, 6,000 points tournament ready, with another 2,000 points waiting on his crazy Buzz Lightyear paint scheme that takes way too long. So
That sounds annoying to look at and to paint.
it's like legit beautiful. I wish I had a model with me, but they just are getting to move into their house, and he just took the army out of here. Otherwise, I'd go grab one to show off. Like, it's beautiful.
Maybe you're onto something. Maybe instead of commission paint studios, you should have commission build studios, and you can kind of start the first one. It's like, we don't do painting; we just build your models and then ship them off.
Yeah, I mean, I've used that for equity trading. I had new in box, and the dude literally offered me more trade if I built it for him. Like, there's a market there. It's just a small one.
See, I'm very particular. Like, if I don't build the model myself, I can't be sure that every mold line has been scraped, and so I have anxiety that as I start painting it, I will discover a mold line, and I get really upset. So I have a very strict rule with my commissions that I either need to build it myself, or it needs to pass my. It needs to, like, I need photos of it, and it needs to be up to a certain standard of build. Especially if it's something that might require sub-assemblies and someone's like built it, like the Silent King, the guy was like talking through all these conversions. I'm like, dude, whatever you do, don't build it, because if you do, I'm going to charge you double, because if I have to paint this thing not in sub-assemblies and as one big model, it's going to take me twice as long. So if you want to build it, go ahead, but I'm going to literally charge you double. Sure enough, that's why it's in the shrink wrap still, because he was like, okay, I'm not going to touch it.
Yeah. I am not that way at all. Like, I've gotten the cheapest, crappiest models. We throw them in the paint stripper, scrub them with a toothbrush, shave them, like whatever has to happen. Like, gaming on a budget, and then if you can, you flip that army, you make money. Like, it's kind of my way. Since I suck at painting, I can't really commission paint. So instead, take crappy lots, turn them into good
You're
lots.
like the eBay
that
rescue guy that like buys like really garbage models, strips them, rebuilds them, primes them basically, and resells them.
Yeah,
You're like
exactly.
basically like, what's that show where they like renovate houses and flip them? You're like that guy, but 40K. Like, you find fixer uppers and you basically renovate armies and sell them.
Me and Jimmy, we're the gay brothers just selling stuff together.
Queer eye for the Warhammer guy.
Yes, I'm so for this right now.
Okay, just full disclosure, guys, I have 28 minutes and then I have this TTS game to play through, so I'm gonna quickly go through my stuff and then let's talk some other stuff. So I've been working on Cursed City speed painting, so check out those episodes. I just got some models from Simon at Creaturecaster, the Ruin guys. So shout out to Creaturecaster for sending these to me. I'm gonna be painting them for them. Hopefully that leads into some more work for them, because they need to get their whole back catalog painted for their website. So that's something that I've been discussing with them. And then other than that, I'm just working on a custom Karn. I'll show you guys a little where he's at. It's a custom Karn conversion right there that I'm working on right now, and that's for a client as well. And then obviously I got the Silent King, and then as you guys may have seen during my Cursed City unboxing, I have about 6,000 points of Dark Angels, and then the guy just texted me on stream to add more models. So now it's creeping up. It started as a 4,000 point Dark Angels commission, and now it's around 6,000 points. So he's like, as like the meta's evolving, but I haven't even painted a single model yet. But the commission keeps getting bigger and bigger. So my next few months of painting is going to be that. All right, so that's it for projects and stuff. So I guess next thing, and David, maybe I'll let you decide what you want to talk about. So originally we were going to talk about third-party models. Should they be allowed? The future of them, whether, and then maybe some of our favorite non-games or shop brands. But knowing that we only have 27 minutes left, would you rather do that or talk to Daniel about kind of a little bit more about his background? Because I don't think we can do both without running out of time.
Daniel, in our show notes, we had this discussion about why do Florida players suck so bad. Was part of the show notes. To all the Florida players out there, I'm not throwing shade at y'all. This is just like a speculative show note. Daniel, how do you feel about local meta, and do you feel like local meta is like, how do you feel like in your region? Because Brohammer right now has some of the top players in the country and have been getting a lot of attention. How do you feel that how do you feel it makes other Florida players feel?
And just for the listeners, the whole no good players in Florida meme kind of emerged like I think probably in the 2018-2019 season when like basically there was a lot of people saying that like all the good players from the Northeast, so like where Sean Naden and Nick Nadavati used to live, or from like the West Coast, and everyone was basically like, yeah, there's no good players in Florida. And then lo and behold, Richard goes and wins best ITC, John Lennon comes third, Brohammer wins best team, and so they really like stuffed it to people. But the joke is still funny that we always joke that there's still no good players in Florida. It's kind of like how there's no Wolves on Fenris, right? So
yeah, so I think it was 2018, and we were like kind of coming out of nowhere that year. Lennon had just joined the team. It was actually like right before Siegler. We discovered Siegler basically. But yeah, like we were like top 10 in the ITC, creeping up, and we had like our community. Basically, if we want, can host a GT a month. Like we have that many players. They're all competitively driven. We've got terrain on deck. We got tables set up. Like we want a GT. We made a couple phone calls. We got a GT. So like there was the talk, it's just a local meta. They're just grinding it out. Like they're not actually good, whatever. Because we didn't get to travel much outside of ATC. John's like 12, so he's still in middle school. He can't fly.
He needs an adult, a parent, a guardian to travel with them. So they won't let him on the plane otherwise.
Yeah, exactly.
Love you, John.
Wait,
so like
is he like one of those like Primarch origin stories where you find him like in the forest, like covered in blood in a drop pod?
That was Siegler. That's how we found Siegler. Lennon's origin story.
Around him.
Lennon would be like Mortarion, he's on his planet. He's like 10 years old, just kicking everyone's butt. And he's like climbing all the way to the top and he's almost there. Siegler, aka Daddy Emperor, just walks in, smacks his shit down, wins everything instead, and is like, go home, kid.
Ouch. Savage.
I love you, Lennon. Basically, like that was kind of our mantra was like no good players in Florida. Like that just motivated us to go travel to more events and prove like we actually don't suck and we're gonna go win best team, best club, because we're a club with like a team inside of it basically. But we were just like, we're gonna go win best team and like bring home a service call from ATC and just prove like there are at least a couple good players in Florida. And to your other question, what's it like playing in that climate? I go to an RTT and I'm expecting to play like a top 10 player if I want a chance of winning that RTT. Like, let alone
I was gonna say like a lot of people talk about like John and Richard because they're very very out there with Art of War and stuff. But like Ruben Fernandez is excellent. He's an amazing player. Mark Perry, obviously he's at the part of in the trap house, the stream trap house, but like, he's also excellent. A lot of the guys, you guys did excellent at that 2019 ATC. You guys put multiple teams. Martin, Richard Martin, my boy Richard. Is it Richard? Yep. Shout out with Custode. Yep. So like lots of really good players on the team, and like honestly, just from my experience, and this is something that I did mention in the whole TJ post, is like it's not just that they're all excellent players, but the way that like when I play John or Richard or any of those guys, I know that we're not gonna have any issues because they've almost patented a way of playing that is like verbal 40k. It's like I don't know how to describe it, but it's like everything that they do, they talk to you about, explain to you, and tell you, and have that agreement before everything, so that we're all always on the same page. So the state of the game is always agreed on at every point of the game. There's never any gotchas. There's never any like weird ambiguities because everything is discussed, agreed upon, and talked to. And that way of playing, I think, is something that obviously like I like to do, but the person that influenced me the most in that was whenever I played John Lennon. He's like the king of that, like, and Richard too now. But obviously, I think I knew John a little bit before I knew Richard. But that way of playing, I think, is such a good way and clean way of playing. And I wish more players adopted that level of play. And I don't know if that's something that naturally emerged from your guys' group, or if it's something that just maybe like one or two players do. Is that like, does everyone play like that in the Brohammer team?
Yeah, that's a big part. So 1 and 2, to roll back just for a second. If you took Lennon and Siegler's actual points out of the 2019 ITC season, we were still a top 10 team. Like to just speak to the competitive level that we maintain down here. like I myself, I've won a couple GTs in Florida, but I haven't traveled far enough to really know if that translates or if it's like if I'm in that like pond. But we have a ton of players of that caliber, and part of that is ties into what you were talking about. The social contract is what Jeff Robinson used to call it, where before a game you discuss, this is a cocked die, this is my intent. Like there's a little bit of pregame conversation, and Lennon, partly because he was helping like coach and teach some of us, and partly because of the social contract, carried that into a game. And we found just organically, as Lennon saying, hey, I've got these gene stealers, they're on a 25 millimeter base within an inch of an inch back 8th edition rules. You can get so many to attack deep. I can set them up that way if you'd like. It's more efficient for the game, so we can reach a natural conclusion. If we're in an approximation, we understand the measurements, let's keep going. Don't bog the game down with something we all know that's the rule, that's the mathematical possibility.
Yeah.
We know that's how it is. Well, don't bog the game down in technicality when you can have a quick communication and move forward. And that kind of translates to in my games, I would always tell someone, hey, before we even start, I'll give you one mulligan. You leave something in reserves and you forget about it, bring it in. You miss a trigger on a stratagem, I don't care about triggers. You tell me that's what you're doing at the beginning of the turn. This is my intent for this turn. I want you to play it the best you can, because that's the only way I get better as a player. And I hope that you offer the same courtesy to me. So instead of
case in point,
creating
my
an
butt letters
environment
against Lennon at BAO.
Exactly.
I
Yes.
can't remember. Did I roll a 4+? I think they just didn't come down. I can't remember what happened. I think they did come down. Maybe I don't remember the outcome.
Yeah.
I
think they were just stuck in a corner somewhere and did nothing. I think that's what ended up happening.
He got to place them. But it was funny because the game before I played Siegler the game before, and he did the exact same thing where he was like, he forgot like some of his something in Deep Strike, and I was like, yeah, but go ahead, like bring it down. So it wasn't a big deal.
Out of curiosity, sorry.
No, go for it, Dave.
I don't know.
I just wanted to know, like, when was the first time you guys were introduced to the Code of Intent? Because I feel like, for me, I went to Nova, and that was the first time I played with the Code of Intent, where I noticed a shift in dialogue competitively, where players would be like, here's what I'm about to do, measure it out now, just so you know, in the assault phase is going to be an 8-inch charge, and we measure out in the movement phase, like, the idea of intent, because, like, later on, like, things might get a little sloppy, and we might forget things. When did you guys first both, like, find out, like, this new world of language for 40K?
So there's two instances that come to mind for me. One is my very first GT, my very first game against the now TO of that GT, Reggie Sanchez. Love that. He's playing a Storm Surge, and I've got Eldar with the Deflamers, and I pre-measured everything. I am within a half of an inch to put all of my Deflamers on that Storm Surge. And I talked it out, measured it, everything, and so I actually go through the movement phase into the shooting phase, and somehow I'm a half an inch short. And I'm just sitting there like, I don't know what happened. Like I couldn't comprehend what happened when we talked through all that. And Reggie looks at me, he's like, bro, we talked about this. That was your intent. Do it. And that was like my first introduction into any type of competitive 40K. And the dude, like, he lets me just one shot nuke his Storm Surge. It's out of there. I win the game.
Yeah.
It's like, I couldn't believe it. Like the coolest freaking dude ever. I give him so much crap now too, because he's a TO and I love just like egging him on. But like that one thing that really solidified my desire to become a competitive gamer. So when I do play the new guys, I can do the same thing for them. Like it's a pass it forward. And then the other instance was listening to Jeff Robinson on a podcast where he was really talking about like preserve your fun and communicate with your opponent to preserve your fun. And it was a marriage of those two concepts. So for me, that's what it was.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, obviously we all miss Jeff. Rest in peace, my friend. I think one of the things that I took away from Jeff, which is like, you have to, like, at the end of the day, like, you have to advocate for yourself. You have to be your biggest advocate. And I think a lot of players, especially new players, and I know there was an article, again, I'm going to call it Tanya Gates, because she wrote a great article on anxiety and gaming on Goonhammer. So check that out. But one of the things that I took away from that is that, especially new players, and we talked about it earlier on the cast, where there's this idea that, like, really good players might intimidate their opponents, or they might, people might feel like they play differently. I think it's really important, and I would beg every new player to really understand that it's up to you to advocate for your position, and don't be scared to have those confrontations, to call people out, to stand up for yourself. Because I've heard so many horror stories from the tournament scene of players saying that like someone bad touched me, and I only hear about it 3 days later. No one, they didn't grab a TO right away. They didn't work through those issues, and they didn't verbalize it. And so what I think this kind of way of playing does is it really helps not only new players understand what good players are doing, and it takes away a lot of the feel bads, but even among very good players, it creates this like trust that like that person is not trying to take advantage of you, because if they they would just do stuff and just expect, and then like it really just removes a lot of the like feel bads. And the big thing, and this is something that I actually do have issues with, is the intent part, because I think there's a big issue with unspoken intent, and sometimes that's a little bit more of a gray area where it's like, well, I would have obviously done that. Yeah, well, if you didn't verbalize it, especially in a high level competitive game, there are like, look, if you look at chess, if you look at any other competitive game, people make mistakes during those games because they're maybe not as good players, and then they lose those games. So if people make mistakes in 40K, they forget to say something or even just declare intent, that could be a mistake, or then they should also be penalized. And I think sometimes we can swing the pendulum too far the other way, where we're too forgiving. Now, when you're a top caliber player, those kinds of, you're giving those gimmies to your opponent might not necessarily actually have an effect on the game, so you're probably maybe more willing. But I always, obviously, we're all very I hope we're all aware of the big incident at LVO, I think in 2017 or 2018, with Tony Kopak and Alex Fennell, which is very famous now. Like it's like world famous incident where basically Tony he helped Alex do things to screw himself over, right? And like, and obviously you guys can Google that. I'm not going to go into it, but long story short, Alex was playing. They were playing under two different ways of playing. Alex was playing with intent, and Tony was not, and they didn't have that social contract. And then you ended up in this huge.
Are you talking about? Are you sure you're talking about the right game?
Yeah.
Are you sure it was Tony? Are you sure it was Tony?
100%. Tony.
Alex.
Tony. Oh, sorry, Tony Grappando. Tony Grappando. I apologize. Tony Grappando, not Tony Kopak. Tony Grappando and Alex Fennell. I got my Tony. Did I say Kopak? I love you, Tony Kopak. Much love to you. Tony Grappando, sorry. Anyways, I don't want to get into that, but my point is like that was a perfect example at a very high level where by not having that intent, that verbalization, look at what happened. Look at the outcome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's part of why. So one is if you enter that into the beginning of the game and into that conversation, you can tell if someone's going to be receptive of that or if they're going to be a jerk. And if they're going to be a jerk and that means they want to play a tight game, then you have to play a tight game. But 9 times out of 10, they take you up on it, and it makes it more comfortable for both of you, and you can both play better. You play more fluidly. And Jim, what I do is, that's why I offer a single mulligan, is someone forgets to declare the intent. They forget something. They don't say anything at all. And I basically call them out like as if it was a gotcha type of moment. And then I tell them to go ahead and do it.
Right.
And that way, like, it's that like chill down your spine. Like, I screwed up. And the only reason I didn't just lose this game is because my opponent already told me, like, it's cool, bro. No worries.
Yeah.
But if they continue to make mistakes, at that point, it's on them. I did everything I could. But the amount of times I've given a mulligan and then my opponent makes another mistake, if it's happened twice, that's too, like, that's a lot.
Yeah, and,
like you get that feeling, you don't do it again.
Yeah, and speaking of Jeff Robinson, if you verbalize it, he would let you have it, but he was extremely unforgiving when it came to things that he didn't verbalize.
My game I got to play against him, I actually did that to him, and I was going to bring that up with the fear aura conversation. If you don't let someone intimidate you, and they're very confident, you can use that against them. And I did that against Jeff and was able to like trap his Calexis assassin. It was a great game, but so that's a little tangent. But if as long as you guys maintain that communication and that level throughout the game, it makes the game easier for both you and your opponent, more comfortable. And to me, you have a lot more fun.
Right. All right, great. And then I guess what is the future for Brohammer? What are you guys up to? Do you guys have any aspirations for the season? I know it's been obvious. I think Florida and most of the South is basically just like business as usual. But I don't know what it's like where you are, David. But like we're basically probably not going to be able to leave our houses for the next 6 months. But what do you guys have? Are you guys doing any of the Las Vegas team tournaments coming up? That's a big event. Obviously, I'm sure a bunch of you guys are going to the Atlantic City Open. And also, for full disclosure, I thought Atlantic City was the one in Georgia, not in. I didn't realize there's two Atlantic-ish places. Also, and I just
You
had
mean
a,
New Jersey?
and with that said, also like, I think a lot of, and the reason I really wanted you on is because I think, John and Richard, they're very well known. People talk to them, and they're very much involved in Auto War. But like, I think the players on that team that, as you mentioned, even if you pulled those guys out, there's excellent players that are top caliber players that could win a GT anywhere in the country, as far as I'm concerned. That play at the highest level with the highest level of sportsmanship competition. And I think that the team you've created is something that every club should look up to and look at, the not just from the competitive level, but from a level of integrity and level of play. Because I personally want more teams like Brohammer, right? Because they really, for me, represent what it, and maybe not when it comes to the painting side, but when it comes to the actual playing side, they really represent what is possible as far as like your way to approach the game at a very high level. And they really shatter a lot of these stigmas and these like win at all cost type, I guess, stereotypes when it comes to good players. You guys have the best players in the world in your team. You're the best, one of the best, or if not the best team in North America. And you guys probably have the best, most like highest level of integrity in play. And I think that's something that you should be really proud of.
Yeah, we really are. I appreciate that. And that was our goal from the start. So a lot to unpack as far as answers there.
Sorry, I tend to ramble. If
but
if you didn't notice by the 17 podcasts that I've created just so I can talk, I tend to ramble.
Same. Yeah. So our goals for Brohammer right now this year is Lennon, Siegler, and Perry are very invested in the art of war. Obviously, it's helping pay their bills, pay their hobby, and it's a great opportunity. So they're currently coordinating with Art of War for the team tournaments. They're under the Art of War banner for ITC points this year. Them. But it's it's a motivation. Like I said, we were a top 10 team without them in 2019. Competition. It's a mentality in Florida of even if I'm playing casually, that means I might not bring Dark Eldar when they're the top army, but I'm still going to play a good army. I'm still there to have fun, but see how good I can do. So it's the same type of thing. Like the big three, they're hanging with Art of War, pursuing their opportunities. How far can they climb? And that's what we support. Right. That's the goal. You want to go as high as you can. And they create a vacuum where we've got guys that are going to step up. We got Ruben, we got Dan Monsalve, we got Will Taylor, part of Florida Man 40K with me. Jeff Beery actually was crushing Lennon at GTs in like 2018. We've got other players who are going to step up, who are going to compete with them at tournaments. Lennon's not unbeatable. I won a GT he was at. I didn't beat him. He tied, but I was able to jump him and win that GT. Like, it's possible. A god can bleed. And our goal is a friendly competition to continue that push and maintain that level of excellence team wide, while still, of course, maintaining our sportsmanship and fostering the community. Because at the end of the day, competitive could completely fall apart. You could have Games Workshop shuts down, whatever. I have a community of 50, 60 people right now. I can send a message, find a game Saturday. We're going to hang out, grab a beer, and have a good time. So, like, that's always been the goal, is that they're not mutually exclusive to be a cool dude, have a good time, and be competitive. And that we're going to continue to push that. We're going to go up the East Coast and win as many tournaments as we can up the East Coast. We're going to travel to the West Coast. We're going to be all over the United States with our Florida freaking like bandanas and high socks and shorts, carrying gaiters, whatever it takes. Like, we're going to go out and do that crap.
Also, while we're talking about it, can I ask where the sloth came from? Because like the sloth is, if you've seen the Brohammer like mascot, it's a sloth with a machine gun basically. I'm not sure what to make him all the gun, but like, can I ask the origins of that quickly?
Yeah. I love it. So I alluded to it earlier in the ramblings. If you didn't skip that in the beginning, people listening podcast form. So my buddy Will, he is like the bridge between me and Cass. Cass is very much a social dude. He's all about the community, and it's like kind of remembering like sloths they're slow. They don't really. There's nothing that stirs them up. Nothing riles them. You just hang out and chill, and like that's kind of the whole point of this hobby is to hang out and chill. It's okay to be sloth-like and just relax. And then putting a bolter in the sloth's hand was just ridiculous.
Oh, it's
So
a
why
bolter. I was
not?
like, I just assumed it was like I didn't actually see what gun it was, but
Yeah. So some of the like we've got the objective markers and stuff now. If you see it up close, you can see like the Emperor's Aquila and stuff. It's been through I think 2 designs. I've got like 10 jerseys in my closet, so like we've been through a couple designs. But yeah, it's just a sloth holding a bolt gun, because it's a little bit of that yin and yang, like to be chill. Don't let it get underneath you, but you still like you're packing. You're good. You're gonna take care of it.
David, any kind of questions? Anything you want to? I don't know. Anything you want to ask Daniel before we kind of wrap up here?
Yeah, Daniel. So like, I mean, you talk a lot about like lifting your fellow teammates up. I mean, like, what are your goals for this coming year? I mean, like,
So
hobby, competitive, life goals, anything. Tell me what you're up to, man.
Yeah. So the big goals, one is always just win a GT in Florida. In all of 8th edition, only 2 people won a GT in Florida. Me and Lennon. That was it.
Yeah.
So I want to keep that going because I just think it's cool. But then besides that, I'm working on, my Florida Man 40K podcast, kind of growing that,
We'll link that in the show notes.
Fostering that. Thank you. And I've talked about it for about 2 years, setting up to do battle reports, to really continue to demonstrate the like conversational competitive play style, because I think that's a very positive play style to have, and where hopefully we can show that personality and it, like you can have fun playing some like fully optimized net lists and still have fun.
Nice.
So push that, and then just go have fun at tournaments. See if I can't bring home a servo skull from ATC.
Let's do it. All right. Any final shoutouts, Daniel or David? Anything kind of final thoughts here before we sign off? The audience or the listeners or the bots that I've hired from Bangladesh to pretend that they listen to the episodes?
I do like those bots. I want to shout out my boy Will Taylor. I've talked about him a couple times. He's actually been doing some commission painting, that going, dipping his feet in. I know you talked a whole episode last week about that, Jim. I was showing off some Death Guard models earlier that he painted for me for the upcoming GT we're going to. So like Will, he's Instagram, he's all over the place. And then he is a co-host of mine on Florida Man 40K, which is the podcast I started with Jimmy and Lennon. I'll talk about Jimmy a little bit. We started that a little while ago, and it's just the same thing, competitive while still being like, so check us out there.
All right, guys. And David, any final thoughts? Shout outs, news?
It's I felt like I was it's been a really difficult pod today, because I had no idea what was going on in the background of what's going on with TJ and stuff. And TJ is a really good friend of mine, and I don't want to look like I'm trying to defend him, but it's very hard not to when I have years of experience knowing him. And it like when yours is being like people are telling you he's cheating, it's very hard for me to like accept. I never thought he was that kind of person, and frankly, I'm probably gonna have a lot of discussions with him. And I hope if people say he cheated, like I'm just gonna say, like, if TJ cheated, he did cheat. I hope that he takes it with grace. He takes his punishment on the chin, and it doesn't derail him from playing 40K. There are a lot of players who have a really shitty reputation, and I hope he doesn't land in that crew of people, because in the grand scheme of things, he's a really good person, a really good player. And I know there are a lot of players in the past who have gotten shit on. Like, I know Josh Dearth is a player that got a lot of flack. And Josh, when he's off the table, he is
He's a great guy.
really amazing person.
Always had great interactions with him.
Yeah,
Sure.
and it's like, I think the hard part is like, even we talked about in the a couple episodes ago about Alex Harrison, is like, these players, like, they fucked up. They did. But, you got to move forward. I'm not going to cast out. There are players that in the past that I know that are very good players that have not got caught cheating. I know they have, because they cheated against me. I won't say names, but you know what? Like, they moved on, and you know what? Like, we all got to do that. And it's like, I hope in the grand scheme of things that, like, TJ gets his shit together, and he cleans up his act, because he's a great guy, and I would hate to see him leave this hobby, because I think he's a very valuable asset to the community, and I hope he cleans his shit up, because, like, I don't know, he means a lot to me as a friend, but he also is an important part of this community.
Absolutely, and I think it's something that we all want. We want that for all players. And sorry guys, I gotta go, so I can't. We can't get much longer. But thank you everyone for listening. If you guys have any feedback or comments for the episode, please leave them in wherever you're listening. The place that you would leave them, depending on the place you're listening. Please make sure to like and subscribe the show on both YouTube and Twitch. Also, make sure to check out the episode on all the various podcast forms. I want to thank you, Daniel, for coming on. Thank you, David, also for being such an excellent co-host. Don't forget, next week, Tuesday, we have Val Heffelfinger talking about esports on politics and plastic. And then next Thursday, we actually have Matt Aaron on. That's our guest for next week. He's a psychologist, clinical psychologist, I think, of some kind. He's going to talk about kind of like competitive psychology, imposter syndrome, some of the kind of more mental health issues. So if you guys are interested in checking that out, that'll be next Thursday on the Best Overall Show, episode 6. I'm Jim Vessel. This is David Koska, Daniel Smith. Thank you so much for listening, and we will catch you guys later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for coming.